When we talk about intimacy, most people think of it as something purely physical, but in reality, it's far more emotional than we realize. For a man, one of the most powerful fantasies he holds deep inside is not just about the act itself, but about how he is seen by the person he's with. He wants to feel like he is deeply desired, like he's not just someone filling a role, but the very object of your passion. This isn't something most men would ever openly admit, because society often conditions men to act as though they are the ones always doing the chasing, always the ones who want more. But in truth, there is nothing more intoxicating for a man than to feel that the person he's with is completely consumed with wanting him, that she sees him not just as her partner, but as someone she cannot resist. Think about how different that feels. A man can be admired in his work, respected among his friends, even looked at as strong and capable by society, but none of those things compare to the fire that's lit when his partner looks at him with genuine hunger. When he feels like, in that moment, there's nobody else in the world you'd rather be with, no one else who could make you feel the way he does. That sense of being chosen, of being irresistible to you, is a fantasy that never gets old, no matter how long the relationship has lasted. And here's the part people often overlook: desire doesn't only come through physical gestures. It's in the way you look at him when he walks into the room, the little spark in your eyes that says, "You're the one I want." It's in the playful touch on his arm, the whispered comment that makes him blush because he wasn't expecting you to say something so bold. It's in the small reminders that he's not just appreciated for what he does, but for who he is, for the way he makes your heart race. These things may sound small, but to a man, they carry enormous weight. Why? Because underneath the surface, men carry insecurities just like anyone else. He may project confidence, he may even act like he doesn't need validation, but the truth is, he wants to be reminded that he's still the one who excites you. And this is where that secret fantasy comes alive. To feel desired is to feel alive. It's to know that no matter how long you've been together, you still look at him with that same spark you once did. Maybe even more now because you know him on a deeper level. Sometimes it's as simple as letting your guard down and showing your attraction openly. When you allow your passion to be visible, when you're not afraid to let him know just how much you want him, it gives him the freedom to step out of his role as the constant pursuer and instead to be pursued. That shift is electric. It tells him that he is more than enough, that he is seen, admired, and deeply wanted. And that is something he may never confess, but he craves it more than he'd ever admit. At its core, this fantasy isn't just about intimacy, it's about reassurance. It's about reminding him that he matters not only as your partner in life, but as your source of excitement and passion. That reassurance fuels his confidence in every other part of his life. Because when a man feels desired by the person he loves, he carries that energy everywhere he goes. And that is why, even though he may never put it into words, one of the most powerful secrets of his heart is the fantasy of being desired in a way that feels undeniable, raw, and real. If there's one thing most people assume about men, it's that they always want to be in control. They're expected to lead, to make decisions, to be the one steering the ship in almost every aspect of life. And while that image is reinforced everywhere, at work, in friendships, even in the way relationships are often portrayed, what rarely gets spoken about is how much a man sometimes craves the exact opposite when it comes to intimacy. There is a secret fantasy many men hold close to their chest, and that is the fantasy of surrender, of being able to let go completely and trust his partner to take over. It may sound surprising, but think about it. A man who spends his day making decisions, solving problems, and holding himself together often longs for a place where he can release all of that pressure. He may never say it outright, because the world teaches him that strength equals control and weakness is the opposite. But in the private space between two people who truly trust each other, surrender isn't weakness, it's liberation. It's a chance to step away from the weight of constant responsibility and allow someone else to lead the dance. What makes this so powerful is not simply the reversal of roles, but the emotional depth that comes with it. When a man gives up control in those moments, he is placing enormous trust in his partner. It's a way of saying, I feel safe enough with you to let go of my guard. I trust you with a side of me that I don't show anyone else. That kind of vulnerability is rare and it's deeply intimate. It means he doesn't have to be the invincible figure the world expects him to be. Instead, he gets to just be himself, fully accepted in that space of surrender. This isn't only about physicality, though that certainly plays a role. It's about the gestures that show dominance in a playful, affectionate way. When she decides to take the lead, when she leans into her own confidence and shows him that she's not afraid to guide the moment. That doesn't mean being forceful or aggressive, but rather being intentional, being willing to initiate, to surprise him, to claim him in a way that makes him feel wanted and chosen. To a man, that can be both exhilarating and disarming. And here's the interesting part, many men who crave this fantasy will never voice it. Why? Because they fear it could make them look weak, or that their partner might see them differently. But the truth is, it takes strength to surrender. It takes courage to let go of control and allow someone else to take the reins, even for a little while. When a man experiences that with his partner, it creates a bond of trust that goes beyond physical intimacy. It's a reminder that he can be fully seen, even in his most vulnerable state, and still be deeply desired. For the woman, stepping into this role can be equally empowering. It's an opportunity to express a different kind of energy, to lead in a way that says, you don't have to do everything all the time. Let me take care of this moment. It balances the dynamic and brings a freshness to the connection that keeps desire alive. And when both people can play with this exchange, sometimes leading, sometimes surrendering, it creates a rhythm that's endlessly exciting. So while the world may paint men as always needing to be in charge, the reality is that one of their most secret fantasies is the exact opposite. To be able to surrender, to feel safe enough to let go, to trust their partner with that hidden part of themselves. It's not about losing power, it's about gaining freedom. And that is a fantasy that, though rarely confessed, can be one of the most powerful experiences in love. One of the most overlooked truths about desire is that it cannot survive in routine. As human beings, we may thrive on stability in certain areas of life, our work, our home, our daily rhythms. But when it comes to intimacy, predictability can quietly dull the spark. For men, one of the fantasies that lingers just beneath the surface is the craving for adventure, the longing to break free from the ordinary and step into moments that feel spontaneous and alive. It's not about elaborate, cinematic gestures or trying to live out some impossible movie scene. It's about the surprise, the unexpected twist that makes him feel like desire is fresh again. Think about how relationships often begin. At the start, everything feels new, everything carries a sense of discovery. Every glance, every touch, every late-night conversation feels like uncharted territory. Over time, however, that natural novelty fades, not because the relationship is broken, but because familiarity sets in. And this is where that quiet fantasy begins to grow inside him. He wants to feel the rush of unpredictability again, to know that intimacy isn't something stuck on a schedule, but something that can catch him off guard in the best way. This craving isn't about constant change or chasing drama. It's about small acts of spontaneity that breathe life into the connection. Maybe it's a playful text he wasn't expecting. Maybe it's you taking the lead in a moment when he thought the night was winding down. Maybe it's suggesting something new instead of sticking to the script. These gestures may seem small on the surface, but to him, they create a sense of excitement that feeds directly into his desire. It tells him that the connection you share is still alive, still evolving, and still capable of surprising him. Men may not say this out loud because it can feel like a criticism of what already exists. But that's not the point at all. It's not that he doesn't value the comfort and safety of the relationship. It's that he longs for the spark of unpredictability within that comfort. He wants to be reminded that passion doesn't have to fade just because the relationship has become steady. In fact, the steadier the bond, the more powerful those moments of surprise become. They carry weight because they aren't constant, they are intentional, and they feel personal. At its core, this fantasy is about energy. Energy shifts when things aren't always the same. When you do something out of the ordinary, it jolts him awake and reminds him that he can't fully predict you, and that is intoxicating. It's the same principle that makes adventure so appealing in life. The unknown carries excitement. And when that sense of adventure is woven into intimacy, it keeps the bond vibrant. It's important to see that this isn't about pressure. You don't need to constantly reinvent yourself or come up with dramatic surprises. What matters is the intention behind it, the willingness to keep playing, to keep discovering, to keep showing him that intimacy isn't a box you tick, but a living experience you create together. When he feels that sense of adventure with you, he doesn't just crave the physical connection, he craves the experience of you. And that is what makes this fantasy so powerful. It's not about leaving behind stability or routine. It's about infusing them with sparks of unpredictability that make him feel like no matter how much time passes, there are still new layers of passion waiting to be uncovered. When you bring that spirit of adventure into the relationship, you give him something he secretly desires but rarely has the words to express, the feeling that with you, life and love will never become ordinary. When people talk about men and their desires, the conversation almost always circles back to the physical. It's the stereotype that men are simple, that they only think about sex, that intimacy for them begins and ends in the body. But beneath that surface, hidden behind the confidence and the casual attitude, lies a truth most men rarely admit. One of their deepest cravings is actually emotional intimacy. The irony is that this desire often hides behind the physical, almost in disguise. He may initiate closeness through touch, but what he's really reaching for is something far deeper, a connection that tells him he's valued, understood, and loved. For a man, the world outside often doesn't leave much room for vulnerability. He's told to be strong, to hold it together, to avoid appearing too emotional. And so the longing for emotional closeness often gets expressed in ways that seem purely physical. When he reaches for you at night, when he initiates intimacy after a hard day, it's not always just about pleasure. It's about seeking comfort, about finding a space where he can be raw without judgment. In those moments, he wants reassurance. He wants to know he matters, not just as a partner who provides or protects, but as someone whose heart is safe in your hands. The fantasy here isn't grand or dramatic. It's subtle, it's tender, it's woven into the smallest gestures. He craves the softness of being held, the warmth of your affection, the comfort of knowing he can let down the armor he wears for the world and still be respected. And yet, because men are rarely encouraged to talk about their emotional needs, this craving is often disguised as something else. He may joke about it, he may act as though it's no big deal, but inside, he longs for those moments where emotional and physical intimacy merge into one. What makes this fantasy so powerful is that it gives him something he doesn't easily find anywhere else. In friendships, in work, in public life, men are often rewarded for their achievements and strength, but rarely for their vulnerability. With you, though, he wants to feel that it's safe to show the softer parts of himself, that he can be imperfect, uncertain, even fragile, and still be loved. When you reach for him, not only with desire but with tenderness, you are meeting that hidden need he cannot easily voice. This is why small acts of affection mean so much more than they appear. A hand on his chest, a whispered word of encouragement, a moment of genuine eye contact. These things go deeper than compliments about his appearance or his skills. They speak directly to his heart, telling him he's not just desired for what he can give, but cherished for who he is. To a man, that kind of intimacy is unforgettable. It strengthens him in ways that no achievement or external validation ever could. And here's the beautiful paradox: when a man feels emotionally safe, when he feels deeply connected, his physical desire only grows stronger. The two aren't separate, they feed into each other. The more emotionally secure he feels, the more passionately he shows up in the relationship. What looks like a physical fantasy on the outside is often, at its core, a longing for emotional closeness. He wants to know that he is loved not only in moments of strength, but also in moments of weakness. So while men may rarely confess this openly, one of their most secret fantasies is the fantasy of emotional intimacy, the chance to be fully seen and accepted beneath the surface. And when that need is met, it doesn't just ignite desire, it builds a bond of trust that carries into every part of the relationship. It reminds him that with you, he doesn't have to hide. He can be himself, and that is the most intimate fantasy of all. One of the most overlooked desires men carry, one they often won't speak about, is the simple yet powerful craving to be admired. On the surface, he may act like he doesn't need compliments, like he's unaffected by whether or not you notice him. But deep down, admiration is one of the things that fuels his confidence more than anything else. A man wants to feel like he's impressive in your eyes, not because of what he owns, not because of the status he holds, but because you see something in him that excites you, something that makes you light up when you're around him. That admiration, whether it comes through words or actions, becomes one of the strongest drivers of intimacy. Think about how often men are expected to be the admirers, the ones giving the compliments, the ones doing the chasing. What rarely gets talked about is that they too want to feel chased. They want to feel like someone is captivated by who they are. When you admire him genuinely, it flips that dynamic and creates a spark that's both validating and thrilling. It reminds him that he's not just showing up as a partner, but that he's also inspiring passion in the person he loves. That thought alone can be incredibly intoxicating. Admiration doesn't always need to come in the form of grand gestures. It can be in the little comments that show you notice the details. Maybe you admire the way he solves problems. Maybe it's the way he speaks. Maybe it's even the way he makes you laugh. When you verbalize those things, when you show him that he has qualities you deeply appreciate, it strikes at the heart of that secret fantasy. To feel admired by you tells him that he is not just fulfilling a role, but that he's genuinely someone who fascinates and excites you. The beauty of admiration is that it goes beyond the physical. Of course, men love being told they're attractive, but what takes it deeper is when admiration touches their character, their effort, their essence. Complimenting the way he handled a situation, the way he treated someone, the way he carried himself with confidence, those things stay with him. They become reminders that you don't just see the surface, you see the man he's trying to be. And for him, there's no greater feeling than knowing that the person he cares about most sees and values him for more than appearances. This fantasy also ties directly into intimacy because admiration amplifies desire. When he feels admired, he feels more confident, and when he feels more confident, he shows up with more energy and passion. It's a cycle that builds on itself. The man who feels like his partner admires him is the man who will go above and beyond to keep that connection alive. He doesn't just crave your affection, he craves the feeling that he is your source of excitement, that he is someone worth admiring even after all the years together. Many men won't admit how much this matters to them, because to say, "I want to be admired," can feel like ego. But the truth is, it isn't about arrogance at all. It's about reassurance. It's about wanting to know that he hasn't faded into the background, that he still stands out in your eyes. That reassurance makes him feel alive, and it deepens the intimacy between you because it removes one of the quiet fears men often carry, the fear of becoming invisible. So when you express admiration genuinely, authentically, not excessively, it doesn't just flatter him, it fulfills one of his deepest unspoken fantasies. It makes him feel strong, desired, and connected. And that sense of being admired by the one he loves most is something he will never stop craving, even if he never says it out loud. When we think of fantasies, people often picture something private, something one person carries inside their imagination. But one of the most exciting and unspoken fantasies men hold isn't about going off into their own world. It's about being joined in boldness by the person they love. Men secretly crave a partner who doesn't just allow exploration but actively joins in, someone who isn't afraid to step into the unknown with them. This doesn't mean pushing boundaries in ways that feel uncomfortable or out of character, but rather embracing the thrill of discovery together. That shared boldness creates a sense of partnership that is both adventurous and deeply intimate. At the core, this fantasy is about not feeling alone in desire. A man may have ideas, curiosities, or things he's wondered about, but he often keeps them buried out of fear of being judged. What he longs for, but rarely confesses, is a partner who makes him feel safe to bring those thoughts to the surface. Not a partner who says yes to everything, but one who says, "I'm open to exploring with you. Let's see what this could look like together." That attitude shifts everything because suddenly it's no longer his secret world, it's your shared adventure. The power in this kind of connection lies in the trust it builds. When a man realizes that he doesn't have to hide, that he can voice a desire or curiosity without being dismissed, he experiences a freedom that goes far beyond intimacy. It tells him that you're not only his partner in life, but also his partner in exploration, in fun, in keeping passion alive. That's an incredibly liberating feeling because it reassures him that the bond you share has room to grow, room to evolve, and room to stay exciting. Shared boldness doesn't mean being reckless. It's not about extremes. It can be something as simple as you suggesting something new, surprising him with your own playful idea, or showing a side of yourself he didn't expect. That act of initiative, that willingness to bring energy into the relationship, fulfills his fantasy of not being the only one carrying the torch of adventure. It tells him that passion is a team effort, and that excites him in ways he struggles to articulate. Men often crave this not because they are dissatisfied, but because they want the reassurance that desire is alive on both sides. If he always feels like he's the one initiating, the one bringing the spark, doubt can quietly creep in. He begins to wonder if the excitement is one-sided. But when you show boldness, even in small, playful ways, it erases that doubt completely. It tells him, "I want this as much as you do." And that message is one of the most powerful turn-ons of all. And here's what makes this fantasy so potent. It's not just about physical exploration. It's symbolic. It's about the two of you saying, "We're in this together. We're not afraid to try, to play, to evolve." That shared courage strengthens the relationship at every level. It creates a bond that feels unbreakable because you're not just partners in daily life, but also partners in keeping the flame alive. So while men might not come out and say it, one of their greatest hidden fantasies is to share boldness with the person they love. To feel that they don't have to carry desire alone, that they're joined in adventure by someone who wants to explore just as much. That, more than any grand gesture or secret dream, is what keeps intimacy vibrant. Because in the end, passion isn't about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to discover them together.